This is Permission to Play, a podcast for creatives and other humans who sometimes wonder, where the F did my mojo go? My moxie, my marbles. Why am I so stuck, lost, depressed? God, how do I break free? Well, I have something I live by. Think less, play more. This podcast is your permission to play. Together we'll explore all things helpful for the care and feeding of the creative soul. Welcome. I'm your host, Chatty Cathy.
Oh, Chatty Cathy, oh, Chatty Cathy, oh, the tell famous talking dolls. We pull the ring, and you say 11 different things. I love you.
Just pull the ring. You never know what she'll say next.
Keeping it. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come and hang out with me, and I really appreciate all of the encouragement and great feedback that I've received. So thank you so much for joining me this week. I'm very excited to introduce you to my guest, Kat Courtney. I have to admit that this week's episode is one that I'm releasing with a little bit of, maybe personal trepidation because of the subject matter. There are some of you who may not know that I have an interest in and have done a lot of research and exploration in the realm of psychedelic plant medicines. If you don't know what those are, I'm speaking of things like ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, or psilocybin, cannabis, all of the psychotropic plant space. I've done a lot of research and not a ton of personal imbibing and exploration, although I did have a very interesting plant medicine journey with ayahuasca several years ago in Costa Rica, which I do not talk about much on this episode. I don't go into it, but I will in the future. Just in case you're curious, it was quite a harrowing experience on many levels and for many reasons. But this week is just an in-depth conversation with Kat. I thought I would give you a bit of background and a little bit of context for this conversation. Kat is known as the Afterlife Coach. She is an enthusiastic advocate and passionate messenger for reverent and safe plant medicine experiences. She works as a ceremony guide and a psychedelic integration coach, and is a certified death doula. Her wild and beautiful ride with plant medicine began way back in 2006 when she landed as a 30-something sort of LA film industry, gaming industry, pink sparkly high top. I don't want to say bimbo, but she did use that word in describing herself in some of her stories of her beginnings. But she landed in the Peruvian jungle to begin her healing journey. At the time, she had been diagnosed bipolar with bouts of destructive depression and anxiety so intense that it landed her in the hospital multiple times. Her first journey with ayahuasca ignited in her an awareness that despite what doctors had told her, she would in fact become a stable, happy, and strong woman. Within a couple of ceremonial cycles, which is about 7 plant ceremonies, she was ready to devote her entire life to the study of shamanism. Kat sat with ayahuasca, and if you're not familiar with ayahuasca, it's become a pretty popular topic these days. But if you're not familiar, it is a plant. It's a vine that grows in the jungle of South America. It has psychotropic properties when prepared a specific way, and it's often mixed with other plants into a powerful brew. It's like a tea that you drink in a ceremonial setting. It's something that's been used by the indigenous people of South America for millennia. They use it for healing, mental wellness, and reuniting people, really, with their core selves and their souls. And it's now making its way into mainstream Western alternative medicine, although Kat talks a little bit about why do we use the term alternative when it's an original medicine. Anyways, she ended up training for almost 12 years in the jungle, off and on, but with a seasoned carrier of the medicine. She drank in hundreds and hundreds of plant ceremonies. Many years ago, the term Afterlife Coach came into Kat's awareness during a journey with ayahuasca, and the medicine urged her to create a platform for coaching to assist seekers in the integration of powerful plant medicines. Her work for a long time has been helping people to navigate the crazy experiences they might have on a medicine journey and helping them to make soul sense of the messages they received, the visions they saw. And now Kat actually pours medicine and serves in a shamanic role in places like Peru and Costa Rica many times a year, and also leads these master plant dietas both in person and remotely. And she assists with the preparation and integration of psychedelics and major life events through her role as a shamanic life coach. She received a death doula certification from the Conscious Dying Institute. So she creates a ceremonial experience for those who are transitioning. She's an expert at guiding people through the shadow work that emerges from patterns of destruction and darkness and the path of understanding and embracing death. She's also the author of Plant Medicine Mystery School, Volume 1, The Superhero Healing Powers of Psychotropic Plants. Her book is released by Metanoia Press, now available on Amazon. It's a fantastic read. We have a lively and playful conversation, so join us for the ride. It's a fun one. I should say it's important for you to understand that, first of all, the subject matter in this episode is of an adult nature, so you may want to listen to that with earphones on, and that all the content is for informational, educational, entertainment, and harms reduction purpose only. Permission to play Kathy Martins and our affiliates. I don't know who we are, but me anyway. And the guests are not doctors, mental health professionals, or legal advisors. Any information shared is not meant to treat, diagnose, or claim cures for any physical conditions or mental illness. There are serious contraindications for some plant medicines when combined with various health conditions and pharmaceutical medications. The views of the guests are not necessarily the views and opinions of Permission to Play. There are sensitive and possibly triggering topics in this episode, including emotional and mental trauma and suicide. Please make your mental health a top priority, and please do your own research and take action to be informed. And remember that you are 100% responsible for your actions and the subsequent consequences. Psychedelics and sacred plant medicines are not for everyone, even when done legally and in a safe and appropriate setting. With all of that said, let's jump into our fun ride of a conversation. Enjoy, Kat Courtney.
Hi, sweetheart.
I'm seeing you. I'm so excited about that.
I know. It's me.
How have you been?
I mean, it's been the hardest year of my life, and at the same time, very rewarding. Yeah. I'm great now. I'm in the rebirth part after the death, but yeah, it's been quite a rite of passage.
Well, I want to get into that at some point for sure, if you're up for it.
I'm up for anything. Yeah.
I love that about you. I aspire to be like you, up for anything.
Well, I'm sure there are limits, but in terms of talking, yeah, nothing's off the table. You can take us wherever you want.
Awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. I was thinking this morning about, well, when did I meet Kat? And I figured it was 2016. So it's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Time I have no concept of, but I do remember where in my timeline I was. So that had to be a long time ago. We've evolved a lot together. Yeah.
Together and apart. It's been fun to watch you grow and go through some of the fun adventures you've been going through. And I love that you're sharing it with the world, what you're doing. It's marvelous. When I met you, you told me you were done drinking the medicine.
Yes, I was. And I meant it back then.
Yes, you did. You absolutely did. It's been so fun to watch how you just live in your truth, and you don't apologize for yourself and your experience, and you are comfortable in your skin, which for me gives permission to everybody you cross paths with. So I really appreciate that about you.
It's something I had to work really hard for. So it means a lot to get that feedback, because before I met ayahuasca and was on a spiritual journey, it wasn't that way. It was so uncomfortable being whatever it is that I thought that I was. And isn't that something we want everyone to have? Is to wake up every day going, I get to be this person. What? Amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like we'd live in a different world if we all got to feel that way.
From time to time, I do imagine it, although I have to say it's been a little tricky lately.
Yeah, we have all the evidence of the opposite. It's a sweet kitty.
Hi, fur baby. We said goodbye to our fur baby on Saturday.
Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. That is not a fun rite of passage when we say goodbye
hard
to our little angels. Yeah.
It was hard. Still flowing in and out of that. It's going to be a minute, I think.
Of such a strong place in our lives. Yeah.
God. He was with us for almost 21 years, Captain Jack.
You
Sweet
talked
boy.
about Captain Jack before. Oh,
Yeah, that was hard. I kept inviting him to just, if he needed to go, but his body just kept hanging on, barely. And then the day came when it was like, oh no, buddy, it's time.
Yeah.
So that was hard, but we brought him home and he's now out in our garden and we planted a beautiful tree that's, it's from the continent of Africa and it's a conifer that grows like a Dr. Seuss thing. Like it just does this crazy, they're pretty spindly. And then they have these long draping little fingers of needles that come down. And that was our Christmas tree last year. And it was, only this tall and it had like 3 little balls on it. And that was it. But it wanted to be outside. So I was looking around saying, where does Jack want to be? And then all of a sudden I thought, he wants to be with this tree. So we have our little memory, our little memento.
What's the tree called?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I'll have to email you that. I can't remember. It's an interesting name. I'll email it to you because they're an amazing tree.
Sounds
Beautiful,
magical.
amazing tree.
Yeah, Kat. So it's Cedrus atlantica, the Atlantis. No, Cedrus. Okay, hold on. So, Kat, it's the Cedrus atlantica or the Atlas cedar, which is a species of tree in the pine family, native to Morocco and also Algeria. Yeah, I had to give that a few seconds thought so I could remember all of that. But no, I looked that up. I read it. I read that. And you guys, Kat's probably going to go sit by one and like have a conversation with it. And then they'll develop a relationship. And then she'll, ask, could I have just a little taste? And the tree will be like, yeah, man, totally. And she'll taste it and maybe eat a little bit of it and then she might have a diet. That's the stuff she does. They have these conversations. She has this relationship with these plants. So anyway.
And they grow in these crazy shapes and they just spread out all over and they're very whimsical and, fun.
It goes with our theme of play.
Yes.
Even letting the passing of a beloved fur baby bring us into permission to play with that too. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Like that's so profound.
Yes. Funny that you should say that because I was kind of jotting questions. I asked myself, how do we justify playing when there's so much suffering and violence and fear and conflict going on in the world?
I kind of want to answer that in the reverse. How do we justify not playing? Because there is so much heaviness and suffering and darkness. I think it's our job as individuals to, as ayahuasca says to me all the time, be the light. You be it. Because I've been in that portal so many times going, where is the light? And having it put back on me. It's like, you have it. Bring it. Shine it. So that permission to play, even in the midst of all of the very obvious suffering and pain, it's like, we got to claim that. And those are the times we need it most, right? So bring it.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to explore that a little bit more. We'll probably have pretty circuitous conversation because that's how my brain works. So
that's all
good.
good.
Don't get too lost. But firstly, and I just want to talk for a second or longer, minutes it could be, about your book. Because this is Kat's lovely book, Plant Medicine Mystery School, Volume 1. Which I'm excited. When I saw Volume 1 on there, I was like, ooh, we all know what that means. So I found it funny when this first came out, I bought the audiobook first. And so I got to listen to your voice because I love to just be in the presence of your voice. And I devoured it, I think in 2 days, 2 sittings. And then I subsequently also ordered this because I like to, as you can see, mark stuff.
Me too.
But your book, Plant Medicine Mystery School, Volume 1, and the subtitle, The Superhero Healing Powers of Psychotropic Plants. But it really, truly is your deep dive into, I don't know if I'd call it a deep dive into your experience per se, because I feel like we get some of your experience, your background, but it certainly is a deep dive into your relationship with these amazing plants. I found the whole thing delightful and wonderful read. Easy to read, easy to digest, very accessible. I appreciate that very much. And so I think it's truly a book for seekers and people who are super curious about the plant medicine space And I feel like it's written with such authenticity from a space of deep, personal, and real and balanced experience. And so I feel when I read this book that I'm with a very trusted guide. So for seekers, for sure. I mean, I think anybody could read it, but really, like, I wish I had had this book I'm glad I have it now because I still haven't finished my exploration. So we'll go into that too. Kat spends time speaking about her own personal experiences, what brought her to this sacred plant space. But then she has a whole chapter in here where she really does a deep dive into her personal understanding of each of how many plants do you explore here? Master plant?
The major entheogens, basically. It's the big psychotropic ones. Not all of them. There are several that aren't listed in there because I don't have a personal relationship with them. But, mushrooms, ayahuasca, wachuma, iboga, like all of the big guns are in there. Cannabis.
And so she does a beautiful job of introducing us to each one and sharing some very amazing insights into their aspects and what they have revealed to her of themselves. And so I found that super fascinating and just a lovely introduction to them. So do you want to say anything first off about writing this book, the experience as an artist and a writer of writing this book?
So it's been almost 20 years since I first drank ayahuasca. And it was in that first cycle that she threw a bunch of books at me and an image of like, you're going to write about me. And I remember saying like, I don't even know if I'm going to drink you again, let alone be your like marketing director. So, because it was quite a portal, right? But it took me a long time to birth that book, about 17 years or so, which is fine, right? Like it takes what it takes, that process. Thank you for the feedback because that's what I wanted it to be, is an homage to the relationships. Because if I had to say I stand for one core thing, it's the relationships that we forge with these plants, to treat them with that intimacy and reverence. So was my approach to birthing it, is like, how can I, through my lens of a messenger, really honor how magical all of these beings are? And you emphasize something important. It's through my lens. So people may experience the plant in an entirely different way, and they are equally valid in their relationship because the plants are very dynamic, as are we. Yeah. So it appears in all kinds of different ways, but I tried to get the essence of who they were as best I could express through my lens, because I do love them so much. They're some of my best friends in the world. So it was an honor to get to be their messenger. They don't have voices like we do.
Right. That is such an interesting perspective for me, because when I first learned about psychedelics, I just thought of them as substances, not beings. And so you really introduced me to that concept. And it's not one that I grasp easily. And hearing you speak of that it's an interesting challenge it was for me. I'm much more embracing it now. But I think in our culture too, many of us don't have that experience. We think of them as inanimate objects. We don't think of them as beings. And so it's a little stretch. But I suppose once you've imbibed and spent time, it's a different story.
Totally. I mean, I think we can feel that with our relationship with nature as a whole. Like if you grew up in the city and you never spent the night listening to the consciousness, the energies, the sounds of the forest, how would you know? You would think, oh, it's just a tree. Like there's nothing there. But when you meet them, when you actually get to like have that experience of their consciousness, it's undeniable, and I've had a lot of skeptics come through ayahuasca, like, plants don't have consciousness. And they'll come out of ceremony going, somebody was talking to me and it felt female. I'm like, yeah, that's her. Yeah. And it's neat to see that limitation shattered, because it's so special for us to get to relate to nature in that way, but of course we have skepticism. It seems weird.
Well, for sure. In our Western culture, for sure. But I'll tell you, you are a force in my life that has opened up my mind. And I should back up 2 steps. I had an ayahuasca experience, which you know of, that I have not shared here, but I will a little bit. But this is about you, but I just want to give some context. I always say, I feel like, and I say it with tongue in cheek, but that I kind of failed ayahuasca 101 because I had such a rough time. I had a rough time. I sparred with her instead of like letting her come in. So, anyways, so I won't go there right now, but what I will say is you have brought for me such an appreciation of at least being willing to play with the idea of these consciousness these consciousnesses being like a thing. And as I have allowed that playful space to open up for me, there has been reciprocation. I mean, it's been bizarre, like sitting out on my deck and looking at my sage plant and trying to open up, like, hello, hello, can you understand? Can you help me understand? And just sit and hold a leaf, hold it and caress it and feel it and just try to stay open and playful about what could that open up for me. Take a little taste and, just sit with it. And then that started to expand to my cat, my Jack. Before he was a pet, then he became a being for me, an intelligence, a consciousness, not just a pet. And it changed my relationship with him. It's allowed me now to mourn the fact that a friend is gone, So it's just been an expanding experience to get to witness your experience of those various ways of understanding consciousness.
Thank you for sharing. That means so much, because what you're describing is it changes how we relate to our whole world, and seeing it with awe that maybe the trees, our pets, everything is looking back at us with that awe, that same consciousness. And what a way to be in the world instead of blinders and all that mental energy that thinks it knows what's going on and doesn't. So especially the spirit of play involves that awe, that curiosity.
It would be a different world if we had that kind of awakening on a larger scale.
Yeah. Well, it's happening. It's just slow. Kathy,
Yes.
It's really slow.
Painfully slow sometimes.
Yeah, but it is happening because it's happening to you and I. So it's happening all over the world. It's just that it's not going to be on the cover of CNN. Woman looks through lens of awe at sage plant. Like, wouldn't that be great if it was? But
That was
no.
front page news. Yeah. That'd
I
be
would
so great.
totally read that. Yeah.
It's funny because my husband and I joke all the time about how coming out of a religious, deep dive religious background and completely coming out of a Christian religion and church and all of that, and then swinging now more toward a different kind of spirituality that just is, it's so much more expansive and it includes so much. And yet I still have eye rolls at some things that I hear, when I make fun of things that are, new agey or whatever at times. And then other times I tell people this, half the time I walk around with a woo boner. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like I have this duality about it. It's like part of me can joke about it and, think it's silly. And other parts of me just like have those moments where all of a sudden the awe hits and you go, wow, holy cow, maybe I better have a little more reverence or something, So it's an interesting journey back to spirituality.
Being human means we get to embody the experience of the separateness and the skepticism of all the woo-woo and the experience of the woo being real. And we're in both. And we go back and forth of like, that's totally BS and that's totally real. I still have the same skeptic mind I did 20 years ago. That's like, are you really talking to a plant? Like, really? And to witness that and the depth of my knowingness at the same time, it's a lot to hold those totally polarizing experiences.
Yes, it is a lot to hold. Thank you for saying that, because there are times that I feel that paradox is like almost more than my nervous system can stand. So, learning to integrate those two things. And that's where and let me ask you, how do you feel playfulness maybe feeds, or what role could playfulness have there?
The ability to laugh at ourselves in witnessing that interplay, that dance, it makes or breaks the experience of suffering. Like, you can either go, oh my God, like I'm all of it and this makes no sense, and like recoil in a pit of torturous suffering. Or you can go, I'm so doing that thing. And just the lightness that comes in because we're all doing it. That's the amazing thing, Kathy, as you look around and we're all recoiling into shame and then out into expansion, and like we're doing the same thing. So we can't possibly be doing it wrong if everyone is doing it the same way. So to giggle at it, to be playful with it, like humanness is crazy, but that keeps me from going nuts. It really does.
Bonkers. Yeah. Interesting that you say that, because I think like I started this podcast because of my struggle as a creative, as a person, but I'm kind of, creativity for me is such a core of well, I think it's a core of who we all are, honestly, but it's something I identify really strongly with. So, and that's who I love hanging out with, people who identify that way. And so made the podcast for people who identify with their creativity, but also struggle, with the shadow and just walking in the darkness sometimes, and to where you feel so separated from your creativity and stuck and not able to move. So I'm just trying to figure this shit out, and just trying to figure out, how can I play more and think less?
You nailed it right there. Is playing isn't mental. And so what I have learned from the plants is anything that we can do to get out of our heads is magical. And play brings us back into our inner child, like that permission just to be goofy, and it doesn't have to make sense. And we're creative in our expression. So that's it. It's the ability to navigate out of our heads, which is the core of the spiritual journey, because none of a spiritual aha happens here. It happens here. Like, we got to feel it. So that's it.
Yeah. We were talking about like how life is such a dance, between these crazy poles. And there are moments when you're in the shadowy realm where you just, like, for me, all I want is to not feel that anymore. And yet we do amass tools to help us through those times, right? So what place do all of these tools and modalities play? Like, for instance, where you where you live in the plant medicine space. What is the dance between working with these plants, working with the tools that we have, and being with where we are?
Yeah. What comes in is what we were talking about just a bit ago of being the light. So the tools bring us back into the laughter and the light of it, so that we can be with that. When we are in resistance to any aspect of our journey, which, by the way, we resist the light as much as we resist the darkness, right? Of like, oh, it's too bright. I'm not worthy. Like, whatever stories we have around that. So we resist across the board. When we can drop that, which is what our tools help us with, our relationships with the plants, like breathing modality, all the different tools I had to get through a rough night on the medicine, as an example. When those tools bring me back into the place of knowing everything's okay, then I can be with it. And I'm like, because that's where we get duped, is everything is not okay. Like, I'm in trouble. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to die. Whatever that primal fear is telling us. And our tools bring that softening of like, is that really true? No, it's not true. It's not what's happening. Everything's okay. The everything's okay space is where it's like, oh, I can have fun now. Yeah. I can enjoy this. Even if it's difficult, I can still say yes to it. That's what it's about to me. It's just saying yes to what's happening.
Yes seems to be a big key.
Yeah, that's our free will. We get to say yes or no to what's happening, don't we? And no hurts. It's suffering. That's it. Pain is like, what do they say in Buddhism? Pain is necessary. Suffering is optional. It's like the pain is what it is. But if we relate to it out of a place of resistance and no, then it's awful. But if we're like, oh, I stubbed my toe. Okay, yes to this experience. Like, we can actually bring play to even the deepest, like, wounds that we go through. That's how powerful we are, is to bring light no matter what is happening.
Yeah, and it does seem, and I keep bringing it back to Western culture, is that we don't have much tolerance for pain.
We don't have tools to deal with it. I think that's the issue in the mental health space in our world, is like, we find somebody that is injured mentally. We don't give them tools. We give them pharmaceuticals that suppress them all the more. Like, this is not healing. And it just shows in our culture, our fear of our emotions, our ineptness with them, our lack of tools, that we're just like, can we press pause and make these go away? Let's do that. Whereas the plant medicines do the opposite of, let's feel everything. That sounds great. And here are some tools by which to do that. Yeah, it's a disease of our culture that we don't trust our emotions.
Yeah, we can't tolerate them.
We think something's wrong because we're feeling. But that's,
God forbid,
what we are. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've been contemplating a lot and thinking about this conversation that we're going to have. And then 2 days ago, in comes this headline into my inbox about how ayahuasca destroyed my nervous system. It's a chat between Irene Lyon and a young man from, I don't know, he's from South America somewhere. I don't remember if he said, but he had an experience with ayahuasca that was challenging, like really challenging. I don't want to go too deeply into that, but unless you do, but Irene Lyon she's an expert in somatic practices for nervous system regulation and healing, not just regulation, but healing and the release of nervous system trauma. And I have found her work to be incredible. So if you're not familiar with this term, we keep tossing around somatics. I know it sounds like some kind of, I don't know, potpourri or a spice blend or something, but what it really is it's a term that's pretty common to the wellness practice space. It describes any practice that uses the mind-body connection to help you kind of survey your internal self, listen to the signals that your body sends about areas of pain or discomfort or imbalance. And then these practices allow you to access more information about the ways you hold on to your experiences in your body. So somatic experts believe that this knowledge, combined with natural movement and touch, can help you work toward healing and wellness. Somatics. It may also be good on chicken breasts or maybe fish. I think it may also be a type of blender. And so when I saw this headline of ayahuasca destroyed my nervous system, I was like, oh dear, what are they going to talk about? Are they going to bash ayahuasca? And I don't feel that they did at all. I felt it was quite a respectful conversation. I would love to bounce around in the nervous system space as it relates to working with the plants, working with our own healing, what knowledge you may have around somatic practices and the body.
Irene's headline is very common, and I'm glad to have people who are experts like her in the space sound this alarm, this warning, because what's happening with psychedelics and plant medicines as a whole is they're sort of being treated as the next best cure-all. Like, come get your miracle, like take this medicine and everything's going to be all better, right? It's not true. It's a really reckless reflection of the fact that these medicines amplify what's happening in us so we can understand them, but it could get a lot worse before it gets better. And that's the reality of it. And as you mentioned, we don't have a lot of tools, if any, most of us, to work with the intensity of our emotions, to trust the energy in our bodies. And so that resistance, that story of something's wrong, short circuits our nervous system. And you add plant medicine on top of that, and it's a recipe for really intense trauma, actually. It can cause more trauma, not less. So I encourage people, if they're new to the plant medicine space and they're called to it, to first have some somatic tools, have some breath work and knowledge, have EFT, some tapping, like have some things that you can bring into the psychedelic space that supports you. Because what we want to do is tell our bodies everything's okay. Everything is safe. But if we don't have some ways to do that somatically, it's not done just here. We can't just think our way to a place of a calm nervous system. The nervous system's like, dude, we're under threat. Like, I don't care what you're telling me. So we want to have tools, and it betters the odds that our experience with plant medicines are going to be healing, not traumatizing. Because they're not here to fix us. They're here to wake us up. And it is the fast track into consciousness, which can be really intense. It's like going to the moon without first training to be an astronaut. Wow. You wouldn't do that, would you? Like, that sounds crazy. So to have some tools, like, it's not really happening. People are just showing up and like trying mushrooms. And I see it all the time. It's like, I tried ayahuasca at home. Like, why would you do that? Like, and now I'm traumatized. Well, yeah. And it's not the medicine's fault. It's your fault for being ignorant and disrespectful, because this is potent stuff. So we need to not blame the medicines for the fact that we're not yet knowledgeable about how to work with them properly.
I love it that you couch it that way, because I have heard much touting of just go do an ayahuasca ceremony and you'll be healed forever, or just come to a therapeutic, heroic mushroom ceremony and it will rewire everything right now, and then all your problems will be solved.
No quick fix, but it shows again the disease of our culture and thinking something external is going to do it for us. The process of feeling and healing. It just doesn't work that way. Like, we get to do it ourselves, not have to, we get to. But like, it is kind of innocent and naive to think, a cup of ayahuasca is going to make my trauma go away. No, it's going to give you an opportunity to feel it and face it and work with it in a deeper way. it will move through, but we don't know if that takes one ceremony or 100 lifetimes. We don't know. There's no guarantee. So I appreciate anybody who's willing to speak about the medicines reverently, but also honestly, that they aren't quick fixes. Yes, miracles can happen, but we create them. They're not just given to us and, the light switch goes on and I'm all better. Like, no.
Much work to be done.
So much work.
And I think if there is something to, and haven't landed fully on my understanding of this, so much searching. But if there's lifetimes to heal, then yeah, that could take some time,
If it took us lifetimes to get to where we're at, I'm not a math major, but it seems like it could take some time to heal from that. Yeah.
Yeah. So piggybacking then on the idea of responsibility, reverence, respect, approaching these modalities like as much of a grown-up as we can be coming to them. Maybe talk a little bit about your experience this last year. It was this last year, right?
It was. Yeah. Kicked off in April.
Okay, then. I was reading your last blog post about that experience and your take on that and how it has informed your thoughts about the legalization of these plant medicines and how those things all work together.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no. But the second thing is way more important than my personal story. But in a nutshell, I got arrested earlier this year, charged with intent to possess a package of ayahuasca. The feds didn't touch it. They don't. As far as I know, there's never been a federal case with ayahuasca. They passed it to the state level. And even though I live in a progressive state, there is a gross misunderstanding of the difference between ayahuasca and DMT. And this is an interesting part of it. All of the court documents in my case list DMT as the chemical compound. And I don't work with DMT, I work with ayahuasca, and they're different. It made my blood boil every time I'm standing in a court. The final judge tried to say diametric, whatever it is. And she looks at me to finish it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember that. I literally don't know. It's not my medicine. That they put the two together makes me crazy. Because they're very different. I'm not bashing DMT. It's ayahuasca is not that. It has DMT, but that's like saying we're carbon because we have it. Right? Nope. Way more than that. So, my journey was a 4-month long, I call it my fear ceremony because I got thrown in jail. I got to face one of my biggest fears, which is having my freedom taken from me. But it was also an opportunity to put into practice all the things that the plants have been teaching me. When I got to the place sitting in jail where I no longer was in prison, basically, where I found my liberation again, I found my internal freedom. Wow. What an expansive, you can lock the door, but you can't take what I have worked so hard to claim. Now, granted, I did not feel that the moment they threw me in my little jail cell and the door locked behind me. I was spiraling down, but I found it. And that's why I had to be in there for a few days. It was only supposed to be a handful of hours and it ended up being a lot longer. My case has a happy ending. I ended up getting 1 year probation and it is what they call the deferred sentence, meaning once that year is up, it goes off my record. I can answer the question, have you been convicted of a crime in the future by saying no? And it's considered honest. So it's okay. They put me in a timeout for a year where I can't work with my medicines. And yes, that hurts, but I'm fine. Because the second part of your question, I got a big wake up call around what's happening in this country. I thought the decriminalization movement was actually making it safer for everyone to have access to these medicines. And it's not. It's only making it safer for people that are already in the system, clinicians, doctors, therapists, people that have to pay $10,000 for a license and be given a gold star to get to administer the medicines, not shamanic practitioners that aren't part of the system. So it's kind of the best analogy I can give you is if somebody gets picked up for maybe performing surgery without a medical license, they're in big trouble. That is what's happening to shamanic beings like myself. Even though I spent 10 years in an apprenticeship, 15 years studying the medicine, that's not considered a worthy rite of passage by the system because I'm playing outside of it. So it's getting less safe for people like me, mainly for the medicine carriers, not for participants themselves. But it is gearing up so that in order for us to receive medicines legally, we're going to have to pay $1,000 for a therapist session in a sterile clinical setting to connect with nature. And it's often, almost always, not going to be nature. It's going to be synthesized in a lab and charged far more money than it costs to harvest in the wild a mushroom, as an example. The system's taking over and it's doing what it always says. It's profiting.
Yeah.
It's profiting and controlling. And so I needed that wake-up call because I was very naive to what was happening.
Yeah. Do you hold any hope that it would ever be legalized in a sense that people just get to have a choice what they do with their bodies?
For sure. Because more and more of us are waking up to that sovereignty and the right for everyone else to have that. But the systems in place are going to have to fall apart. No, the systems that we have that are telling us what doctors we can see. And like, we know that the pharmaceutical industry is running this, not some altruistic, like everyone gets to heal. The systems are going to have to be dismantled.
Yeah.
The younger generations get this. It's only a matter of time. You know, we know love always wins. So, but we're in this like squeeze, like right now, the contraction of it. And that's okay. It's how we evolve.
I love it that you have such an open and loving space around it. I get so upset over things. I just get, and it's not a good place.
Oh, me too. Oh, I was pissed. I was mad at the planet. Like, screw you. I'm standing for you. Like, and you throw me in jail. I went into a deep victim story around it and then had to find my way through it, which is the hero's journey. We get thrown into our darkness and we find our way out, and it's okay.
Yeah. I loved what you talked about. I didn't love it. I just was like shocked by it. How they assigned the weight of the amount of DMT as 4.5 pounds or something, because it was the poundage of the full package of what you.
Well, and the water weight and the plant material itself, none of that was considered. What they do is like, well, the whole thing is 4 pounds, is 4 pounds of DMT, which makes me sound like a horrific drug dealer. When in fact, like I had the Ayahuasca Defense Fund, which I want to give a shout out to them. They were my guardian angels, like a group of lawyers that are funded by a nonprofit, ICEERS, to support people like me. And their estimation based on the weight from the law enforcement was it was probably less than a gram of actual DMT, but I was charged with like 4 something pounds. It's so crazy now. And I don't even work with DMT. So the whole thing was completely bonkers, but that's the system.
Yeah. It's so funny that we keep propping up systems that don't make sense. We have laws, but sometimes anyway, that's a big discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to dive in here a little bit, but I want to know, are you working on any second volume yet, or?
Yes. So the second volume is a beast because it is an encyclopedia of master plants.
Oh, wow.
It's basically what volume 1 is, but for 350 master plants. But what happened, Kathy, about a month and a half ago, a tarot deck came in before the book.
Oh.
So I have an artist that I'm working with, and we're creating the Plant Medicine Mystery School tarot deck to work with each of the plants in that kind of like daily ritual. I always pull a tarot card as a symbol for each day. So the deck will come before volume 2.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
More playing. That's all you do
I know.
is play. What the heck?
Including in prison. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Oh my God. It's just, I love this. You say, this is a book about the superheroes of the plant world, the entheogens that, by my estimation, are indeed here to save the planet. How are they going to save the planet?
Well, by waking us humans up to the fact that we're responsible for the relationship with the planet. Like, and if I'm being honest, they're saving humanity because the planet doesn't really need us to save her. She's fine. She'll just flick us off if we get annoying because she's done it before and she's gone through a lot of transformation in her billions of years. So the truth of it is they're saving humanity, but they're teaching us to save ourselves through our relationship with nature. Because I think that's the core wound that we have in the Western world. We're disconnected from our home, from our mother, from the space where we come from. We are nature. And that wounding is so deep that we create systems that don't serve us and we hurt each other and we do all these toxic things. Yeah. So the entheogens are helping us to wake up to the fact that if we don't play win-win, we're going to just be flicked right off here one day.
Like a flea, a little shake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annoying humans, be gone.
And yet you also in this book talk about who we really are
and why we're here. And I find that super interesting. You dive into a little bit about the difference between spirit and soul minus body equals liberation. And you say if we're here to find out who and what we really are. And I find that sort of almost a paradox when you think about humans in our little meat suits running around on the planet, many of us doing our best to destroy her, and yet we are one with the consciousness. So I find that interesting paradox.
We're destroying ourselves. The entire human experience is an interesting paradox. And I like the expression cosmic joke, like the idea that death is this permanent ending. And my experience tells me it most certainly is not. But how hilarious that we could spend our whole lives being afraid of it, our whole lives railing against what we are, which is nature. But the patience, the unconditional sort of spaciousness that consciousness gives each of us, the children of it, to figure it out on our own time. Yeah, but it is a huge paradox, the human experience. That's why we got to laugh at it. Otherwise, we'll go crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have spheres of art that you play around in? Oh, writing, obviously.
Yeah, well, and I consider the shamanic arts, a space of creativity, because when I get to sit behind the altar and drink medicine, I get to sing. I get to use my voice, but in relationship with the energies. And the idea, for me anyway, is to no longer create, it's to be created, or to no longer sing, to be sung. And as creatives, this is what we try to do, right? Get out of the way for our muse to come in and create magic. And plant medicines help me do that because it's a space where my ego gets put to the side and something, I call it soul. My soul can come forth and co-create in the space. And to me, it is play, even though it's intense shadow work and people are purging and crying. I'm still playing and co-creating with the energies of the medicines to help create healing. So I consider all of that art.
Yeah. I mean, I can find art in just about anything, cooking food, playing with kids, it's all fun. So like for me, I can get really stuck in a space of, I don't know, it's a bizarre thing. It's just like this space of like you're wedged between something and you can't wiggle free. And sometimes it can be for a day. Sometimes it can be many days. And I can't find my creativity. I can't find my soul. I can't find anything, my mojo. I'm just like, it feels like it's forever and ever. I wonder what your thoughts are about that.
Good old writer's block.
Yeah.
So you'll find a theme in the way that I answer questions often has to do with relationships. So what I have done over the years is create a relationship with my muse, like really imagine her as a goddess being that's helping me to use my voice. Because when I left it in the space of, I have to write, I have to create, there's like this burden and pressure. And it's like, we all know when we're in a creative flow, it isn't our minds that is articulating or painting or singing the magic, right? So to create a relationship, it could be also higher self, soul, to basically connect out and extend that co-creation to something other than our minds. Then we can be curious of like, well, what would you have me do differently? Because my muse has had me do some weird things to get in the flow of writing. And stirring the pot, mixing it up is always helpful because stagnation just wants to sit in it, just sit at the keyboard going like where nothing's coming in. We've all been there and we all know sitting there longer doesn't tend to make something, like we got to stir the pot. But to have a spiritual relationship with what feels like our ally in being creative, that we can like pass the baton. I'm like, what do I do? Sometimes it is just like, time out. You're not supposed to create right now. You're supposed to be in your humanness, but like we can often get some insights, however bizarre they might be, to stir the energy and to try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why sometimes it's nice to break out of whatever medium you typically go to.
That's super powerful. I did an improv class for stand-up comedy once. I sucked at it, but I found this new creative, angle, basically. So yeah, to get out of our box and to try different things. I love that.
Yeah. You talk in your book, you said it just a minute ago, the issue is no longer awareness, meaning about the plants, but sacredness, as the Western world is in full swing doing what it does best, profiting off of the world's need to heal and awaken. And then you talk a little bit later about business, and you said something about you couldn't imagine that someday that working with these plants would pay the bills. So thinking about artistry, creativity, career, money, that whole energy space, I think that many of us, many creatives find that a confounding space. It's like we want to create and we want to have the freedom to put that creativity in the world. We would like that to be the main focus of our lives. What's your thoughts on how creativity and profit or earning, how do those things play together?
Back to relationships, we also have to work on a relationship with the spirit of money itself. I call money moneta, and connect in a spiritual way with that energy because, and I love this question, because there is an element of creativity in figuring out how to make a business out of our creativity. Ayahuasca likes to use an expression to me a lot when she's showing me something that's possible. And I'm like, I don't know, that it's a failure of imagination. Just because you can't imagine it, sweetheart, doesn't mean the universe can't imagine it and create it with you. I certainly had that the first time I saw myself sitting behind the altar in a ceremony of like, I couldn't possibly do that. Are you kidding me? Like, no. And she just laughed at me because we have limitations around what we see and believe that we can experience. So first and foremost, I think it's imperative that we create a relationship with the vision that we have of thriving off of our business and being creative in that as possible. Because we come up against our self-worth, our stories of limitation, and that's why healing has to be happening in conjunction with the desire to be in our power. And if our power is making money off of our creative offerings, we get to have that, but only if we give ourselves permission. And so if we're not giving ourselves permission, well, then it's time to go do some healing and play in that space, because it is always a failure of imagination. Ayahuasca's right. The universe is not limited in how it can imagine what is possible. And we can see that in the lives of other people. Oprah didn't imagine something small. She lived in a big life. We see people everywhere doing that. And if that's what we want, by the way, we don't have to want it that way. But if we do want it, we have to first know that it's possible and that we deserve it. And if that isn't happening, healing. Go face those shadows of limitations and develop a relationship with the spirit of money too, of like, I deserve to be in relationship with this energy, because it gets a bad rap, money, right? Because we have a projection in our culture of it being bad. It's not, it's just energy, and it's going to flow where it feels. There's a relationship happening.
Do you have any specific suggestions on a way a person might approach starting that conversation?
Absolutely. So behind me on my altar is my book, as well as a book of the publisher that ended up publishing my book, like Creating a Relationship. Dr. Richard Doyle is the gentleman who founded Metanoia Press to support writers, that because it's a 50-50 split with him, whereas the other publishing companies were going to give me like 5%, right? So, but he inspired me, and I put him on my altar, and I ended up meeting him, developing a relationship, and boom, right? So you find, whoever's inspiring you, creating sacred space around what we want to happen. And it's something else that I coach people around when they're having a disjointed relationship with money is take the money out of your wallet every day and put it on your sacred altar and say thank you, or your credit card. Treat it as sacred, because most of us have this like shame, unconscious relationship built in. And to start unraveling that, magic happens, but we got to put forth the effort instead of, gosh, I wish I could make more money, or I wish I could make money off my art. If we're not doing that, we need to be curious as to why and do things with that awareness of our shadow rather than just, hey, universe, do something for me. It's like, we got to make the effort. There's so many things we can do.
I wonder about that in the space of like, if you consider all of that alongside some of our very hard issues that we're really not in conversation about these days around social justice and around equity and that kind of thing. Like I know a couple of creatives who they almost have a vow of poverty because they feel that that will put them in solidarity with people who do not have abundance. And I just sometimes wonder about that. I think, how do we frame that? If we believe that the universe is this incredible creative force that is always like moving things, how does that sort of identification fit in? I mean, how can that serve or not serve? I don't know. Maybe that's just a matter of perspective, but any thoughts there?
Don't think it serves us to repress the opportunity to be abundant, because wouldn't it be lovely if more people that wanted to play win-win and share the resources that they have actually make the resources? Because right now the resources are going to, the 0.02% and they're hoarding it. I remember ayahuasca saying to me once, you guys, does anybody really need $1 billion? Like, can't you just hit the 900 million mark and get a trophy of you won capitalism? Congratulations. Like, what on earth are you humans doing? Who needs $1 billion? It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Many of us get that, but we're in that vow of poverty of, so money is the enemy then. Like, no, I want all of us to be making the money and then sharing it and founding nonprofits and doing things with it rather than hoarding it. That's how we can create more of that equity, not denying ourselves the opportunity to be abundant at all.
Right. Well, that's where the sacredness of it comes in. It's like not just the sacredness of the resource itself, but with how we become a conduit, so that we keep the flow going. There's a sacredness to that. Like, yes, I'm going to receive it, but also what am I going to do with that?
Kathy, that's the code. That's the code we have to crack, is if we don't trust ourselves to be generous, to give back, then we will deny ourselves the opportunity to be abundant. I know the more that I have put my money where my mouth is and donated to causes of putting plants back into the ground, supporting the indigenous tribes that I get to carry their lineages, the more I've stepped up and done that, the more abundance finds me, because I'm in integrity with giving back. And so I don't have the same blocks I did before when I was hoarding what little I had out of fear. Like, that's the code. And you know what's magical about that is in the ancient mystery schools, the word sacrament didn't just mean the medicine itself. It meant our commitment to giving back. Because if we're taking something that's going to tell us the secrets of the universe and to heal our darkest pains, well, gosh, it would be nice to give something in return, right? Reciprocity. In Quechua, the word aine means sacred reciprocity. And so we know this mentally, the more I give, the more I get. Yeah, that makes sense. Put it into practice,
right?
Like in whatever way that we can do. And then it gains momentum. Feels so good.
Yeah, that's a form of playfulness. It's like play with the universe and see just how abundant it can be. And the shame around some of the folks that I know, my heart breaks. And I have a troubled relationship with money too. But I watch people agonizing. They have a true gift or talent that people want. They're offering money and they're like, oh no, I can't. No. Oh no. Or I wouldn't want to sell to somebody that could pay that much for what I make. It's like, what? Why? So and it's just sort of it's a weird trap. It feels like almost to me. And I feel like it just perpetuates sort of an energetics of poverty, just perpetuates it.
In all ways, not just money. Like in being connected, because I like the word abundance. Abundance isn't just about what's in our bank account. It's the love we experience. It's the connectivity. It's all of it. And if we're blocked to one aspect of abundance, we're blocking all of it. Even if we're trying to tell ourselves otherwise of like, I deserve to be poor because that's more righteous. Really? I mean, if you're truly happy in that space, fantastic. But most people aren't. They're trying to tell a story of validating it. That's not abundance. We all deserve it. There's enough for everyone. There really is.
Yeah. And maybe we just don't believe that. Or somehow we're taught that. We're taught that in our culture.
We are.
We're taught that by probably the 2% who want, keep the balance up top. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. I heard a young gal talking the other day she works with displaced kids coming across the border, and she was really struggling with the idea of wealth and abundance. And then she just broke down and she said, but the parents of these kids that are trying to get to this country, They're trying to get here because they just want to make some fucking money. So she was trying to like find the balance there. Like she wants to be in solidarity with the poor, and yet the poor are clamoring to get to the wealth. You know what I'm saying?
We don't want them to be poor anymore,
No.
right? We want all of us to thrive. So identifying with poverty doesn't heal poverty. Neither does hoarding $1 billion. We know that. But our reaction, the polarizing reaction, is to deny ourselves that because we don't want to align with what it symbolizes. Why don't we make abundance symbolize something different, which means we all get to have it? That's the world I want to live in.
And I think we create that by shifting mindset. You have to shift that perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know the answers on how to do that, except for possibly to unplug from messaging that is the opposite of that. And I don't know, spend time in quiet. Go out in nature. Holy cow.
To me, that's always the answer. Yes. Do we want to alchemize something? Go out in nature. Does nature have an issue with abundance? No. No.
It is the model of it.
Oh my gosh. Exactly. And all of the animals and plants and rocks, and they're all in play with that abundance. Why can't we also play in that, be a part of it? We can. We're just denying ourselves.
And we're just so much mind fuckery, that we put on ourselves and that is perpetuated is, to me, part of the problem. And so learning how to disconnect those connections and repeating loops.
Come back here. Yeah. Our beautiful minds.
Yeah, they are beautiful. But I can see the intense value of the practices that keep bringing us out of that swirling and back into the body, back into being here, grounded now. So huge.
I personally would have self-destructed had I not found ayahuasca or some modality that took me into a different part of my consciousness. My mind was self-destructing. It is a prison when you think that's all there is.
Yeah.
Anything we can do to expand into our hearts and our bodies, our souls, all these different aspects of our consciousness outside of the mind, it's so immensely healing. Can't think your way into a state of healing.
No, you could move your way into a state of healing. Just like moving, just like sitting quiet and just listening to all of the messages that your body is sending and dancing with those, and then just like move with those. Dance is so healing. Art of any kind of creativity to me is such a healing thing.
Move it.
Yeah.
My card of the day, I mentioned, I pull cards. This is from a Threads of Fate deck. It's movement.
Oh my God.
So, no coincidence.
No, it's not. It's not. What else did I want to ask you about? What makes you well up with gratitude?
It makes me emotional to go there. Any reverent connection with nature where I can be in the presence of how much I've been given by the plants. I mentioned I was self-destructing. I don't think I would be here. Either passively self-destructing through bulimia and alcoholism, or full-scale suicidal. I wanted out of here. And it's nature, really. Ayahuasca, wachuma, like all the aspects of nature that came in and said, sweetheart, like we can't do it for you, but we're going to help you. Have more fun. My ayahuasca teacher always used to say, Kati, he's French, like your only job is to enjoy the ride. I did not know how to enjoy the ride. And I'm still learning, by the way. There are experiences, of course, but that's what makes me well up with gratitude, is the way the plants in particular keep teaching me how to have fun, even when I'm walking through the legal system that is completely draconian and unfair. Even when I'm sitting in a jail cell of like, well, because I remember when they were checking me in to get in jail, the doctor was very struck by the fact that I was kind of having fun. He's like, you're unusual. I'm like, well, I probably won't ever have this experience again. So I'm just trying to have fun with it. And he leaned in and he's like, don't let this place take your light. Don't let it. I'm like, I promise, sir, I will not. I won't. It's mine. I'm not giving it up to this place or any place else. But it was lovely to have it recognized. That's what makes me well up with gratitude, that I have that capacity now. And yeah, that's because of nature.
My God, that is so beautiful. I long for that. I long for that. It's a big process for me. It's been a long road and I'm not there, but just sitting in your presence that you have found that space?
Sometimes, by the way, not always. However, I am aware of the permanent invitation into that space. We use the expression, it's hidden in plain sight. I was aware, even when I went down into dark victim consciousness this year, that the light was always like, you want to come back? No, you want to stay there? Okay, cool. It's fine. Once we start cracking the code that we have a choice, you can't unknow that. But is it always accessible? Hell no. No. And so to have compassion for ourselves, when we're in the part of our journey where hell feels permanent, where it's like, I'm not getting out of this maze. My God, I don't know my way out. Compassion, yes. But it's always inviting us to come back into play, into the awareness that everything is okay, even when it feels like it's not okay.
Boy, it's hard to remember that in the moment. So I think what you're saying to me is the practices, whatever they might be, are what build the capacity to return quicker to that state of equilibrium, that state of play, that state of like being in sync with the universe and goodness and love and, well, who we really are, right?
Exactly.
I think you quoted Rumi to me once when you were saying, what is it that's keeping me from experiencing all of the love that there is for me, all of the love. And then also Gabor Mate said it in his interview that I listened to yesterday. And then somebody at my ayahuasca journeys sat down next to me and said it. He said, I'm just going to sit here next to you and I'm just going to be love. And then he didn't talk anymore. He just embodied that. It was like one of the most powerful moments for me. And it got me really thinking about, and then Gabor Mate said, we don't carry love, we are love.
Yeah.
So if any practice that we have, any spiritual practice, any practice of becoming quiet and centered and opening to ourselves, if we can become more acquainted with ourselves as love, maybe that's what helps us return again more quickly to a more spacious place.
It helps us enjoy the ride, because we are going to have this ride. We went to Earth School is like the ultimate Disneyland, isn't it? Not Disneyland, it's Six Flags with the craziest roller coasters imaginable, right? But it is a ride and it is okay. In the grand scheme of things, it really is. And so if we can learn to have that love and compassion for all aspects of the ride, I don't know of anything more healing. Just to say, yes, this is happening. Well, this is happening. Okay. All right, here we go.
And connection. Like, I'm so grateful. Like when you say what makes you well up with gratitude, it's moments like this where I get to just connect with your heart. I wish we were in the same room because I love your tackle hugs. Just to have this moment where we get to meet in this space of, yes,
everything's okay. We got to remind each other of that now more than ever.
For sure. This last 3 years of the fun house just doesn't seem to end. Damn. And yet heart seems to be exponentially growing. Like, we'll get there.
I say yes to that.
I really would love is to bring together more than one voice in a sphere. Like I've suggested to you, like the idea of being able to have a conversation with two people who they're really speaking the same language, but they may seem like they're not speaking the same language, but then we find out that we are. Like you and Irene, I think would be a beautiful pairing to sit and talk about. I
love it.
Yeah, talk about the nervous system, talk about the plant medicines, talk about all of that healing space and what responsibility we as individuals bring to those modalities.
I love it. All roads lead to the same place, but we all have our different path up, and to find those commonalities and honor other people's superpowers. And yeah. Because especially Irene's superpower in the somatic space, because it's really, really lacking in the plant medicine space. I've actually started, instead of emphasizing integration, I call it embodiment instead. The aftermath is about embodying what comes through, which naturally has to be somatic. Has to be. If we just leave it here, it just stays there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good to the rest of our beautiful little meat suits here. So yeah, I love that.
Seems like there's more potential for psychosis too. It gets all stuck up here instead.
There is. There absolutely is.
The body knowing Yeah, the body is intelligent, and I'm learning that more and more as I learn more about movement and how
Me too.
intelligent our body is, and the water of our body. Like water in and of itself is a being. It's like, holy cow, the studies and the things that they're learning about the intelligence of water. And we're what, 70% water? You know, it's like I've started talking to my water. It's like,
Too. I actually do weekly ceremonies with the 4 elements. So I connect with water, air, earth, and fire regularly because everything's made up of it. And that's core shamanism, is the relationship with the elements, animals, plants too. But I like to honor an element each week. In fact, this is Water Week. So happy Water Week.
thank you. That's exciting.
Again, relationship with the constructs of our world, of living on Earth. It's really profound to have that conscious awareness of what water is, fire is. I love fire. Air, connection to the earth. It's a beautiful part of our healing if we want to connect with our natural environment in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. That's all amazing. I don't think we can, I think we might have to visit again. Sorry, but we just have to.
Tough. Another conversation that's awesome and enlightening and connected. Darn.
Yeah. Would you? Could we at some point?
Absolutely.
That would be
Absolutely.
so great. I have a quick little rapid fire round. We're at the hour. So can I do this real quick with you and then
You totally can.
close it out?
Yep.
It's just fun. Why not? I may axe this at some point, but I've been having fun with it. Okay, so just quick. So what's your go-to comfort food?
French fries. Or actually tater tots. That's a superior potato product. Yeah.
Coffee, tea, crack?
Yes. Mushroom coffee. Can I choose that? I love the mushroom coffee. It's so good.
I should have put cacao on that list.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. What's your imaginal animal?
My number one animal totem and who I feel I'm part of is jaguar, black jag.
I think I knew that. She's on your skin.
Kitty cat. Yeah. Big kitty cat.
Yeah. Jack was a gorgeous all black kitty cat. And a pirate. He lost one of his eyes at one point. It didn't come out, but the cornea detached. So he was blind and it was all weird looking. And it was like, I'm sorry about that, dude, but it's sure consistent with who you are. Okay. Sorry. Mountains, ocean, desert, celestial body, city.
Mountain. My medicine name is Ashkumishi. It means mountain cat. Mountain forest. That's my happy place.
Nice. Me too. Who or what makes you laugh?
I make myself laugh. I crack myself up. It's kind of in the spirit of what we're talking about today. It's we got to bring it ourselves. I think I'm hilarious.
I love that about you. Oh my God. I think you're hilarious too. What is the key ingredient in your secret sauce of joy?
Trust in death.
Whoa.
Death is safe. Death is totally safe. Yeah.
I'm going to be chewing on that one for a minute. Wow. Okay, you might be too young, but if Chatty Cathy was to pull your string, what would you say?
I don't know what that reference is. I'm not normally too young for anything anymore. So,
well, that shows you my age. Chatty Cathy she's my totem, I guess, on my podcast. Chatty Cathy was a doll. And you would pull a string out of the back of her neck and she'd say, I love you. Or any number of things. So if I pulled your strings, what would you say?
My platform is always the plants have consciousness. Talk to the plants, they talk back. Something along that, which is a really strange thing for a doll to say. That would not be a Toys R Us. No, crazy damn doll.
Profound and creepy and fun. What word best encapsulates the nature of reality for you?
Limitless.
I like that. What would your parting sentence to this life be?
I'm going home.
And what do you want your epitaph to say?
Honestly, nothing at all. I don't have an attachment to a legacy. I would rather it be the energy of love and connection that I left behind. The other part of that is I don't want to be buried. And so I never imagine a headstone or anything like that. So nothing. It needs to say nothing. If I didn't say it with the actions that I put into the world, then what good is a sentence going to do when I'm no longer here?
That's awesome. Okay, well, if I was to scatter your ashes, my epitaph would be, she was a tackle hug.
How about she enjoyed the ride?
Yeah, that's for sure. And you helped others to do that too. So,
Even better. Thank you.
yeah. Hey, thank you for hanging out with me.
You're so welcome. My honor. Thank you for, honestly, I've done a lot of podcasts, Kathy. These questions were just really epic and special. We went to places
Awesome.
I don't get to normally talk about. So thank you.
Oh, cool. That's my heart's desire, you know? It's to just hang out and visit and just no limits. Limitless.
We didn't have any.
Best wishes on all your endeavors, and we'll talk again soon. And one day, Kat, one day I am going to be with you in some ceremony or other. This was a form of that, but I mean with the plants. It's gonna happen.
We're doing it. Well, you got time. I'm on probation, so no rush.
Hey, what's your anniversary date? Then I can
August 3rd.
okay.
August 3rd of next year.
Okay.
I'm a free woman again.
Okay, I just drew some fireworks, some hearts, and some confetti and all kinds of stuff there. So I'm that date will be auspicious for me too. Perhaps the work that I need to do to be ready for that space will get me there.
I love it.
Yeah. All right. Love you. Thank
Love
you
you
so
too,
much.
honey. Happy Thanksgiving week.
You too.
Like-
You too. Eat and be fed and be well.
I am on it.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
sweetheart.
That was fun.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Find out much more about Kat Courtney's fascinating knowledge and crazy-ass experiences in the wild spaces of psychotropic plant medicine journeys and master plant dietas by visiting all her places. You can find her links in the show notes, as well as links to jump on my email list so you can get reminders and notifications of when episodes go live. If you enjoyed this conversation, please come back for more. I've got some really interesting and inspiring guests on tap for upcoming episodes. I've got award-winning authors, actors, more plant medicine people, nervous system experts, just a smorgasbord of goodness and curiosity. And also, if you could please help me grow my audience by sharing with your friends, and especially subscribing to, rating, and reviewing the show. And here's a simple way you can do that. Just click the Rate This Podcast link in the show notes, or go to ratethispodcast.com/permission to play. Follow 3 quick and easy steps, and bam, you've helped all the people find Chatty Cathy Martins and permission to play. See how easy that was? Thank you so much, my friends. It means so much that you chose to spend your time with me today. Be well, and remember to think less, play more. Grant yourself permission to play.